Welcome to Road to Recovery.
Hello and welcome to Road to Recovery, advocacy and insights for trucking accidents with Sagi Shaked. Sagi is founder of Shaked Law Personal Injury Lawyers and is ranked as one of the top 100 trial lawyers in the United States by the American Trial Lawyers Association. He has a wealth of experience in personal injury, wrongful death, and complex litigation cases, and he passionately advocates for victims and has recovered multi-million-dollar settlements in damages for his clients. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode is The Insurance Playbook, Inside Truck Accident Claims. Sagi, welcome back.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, so can you explain the role of insurance adjusters in truck accident claims and how they influence the claims process?
Yeah, so adjusters have a unique role because they're the first ones involved in these cases. And why I can tell you a little bit about this is because before I started representing individuals, I used to work for the defense firms and insurance companies. And so I was a lawyer defending different companies and insurance companies in these types of cases. So I have a unique insight as to how these insurance companies look at these cases and how insurance adjusters, see a case. And so when you asked earlier, what is the role of the insurance adjuster and how they influence the claims process? Your adjuster is the one handling your case. So they're supposed to analyze the case. They look at who's at fault. They look at, are your injuries from this crash or not? They look at, have you had other cases in the past? And what are the long-term nature of your injuries? And then they are going to try to settle your case. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to offer you fair value. It just depends. And they have a rating system. So when I was a defense lawyer, how would the insurance adjuster know if they got us involved, the defense involved early? We would look at who's the lawyer, who's the law firm. We would look to see if they've had trials in the past. What were their results? Do they have experience? Do they not have experience? And that's a huge influence on if your claim's going to get settled for peanuts or your claim's going to get settled for a lot of money. It really does make a difference who you go to in terms of a lawyer, because insurance companies, they do a background on every lawyer. And this is how an adjuster uses this when they're trying to settle your case. So they would look at, again, you do the background on the lawyer, and that influences whether you get the type of money you get on a case.
Interesting. And how do insurance companies assess and handle truck accident claims? And what factors do they consider when determining the value of a claim outside of how good the attorney is?
Right. Aside from digging and doing the research on the attorneys that are handling the case, right? They look at the actual facts of the case. How did it happen? They look at the plaintiff. Is this person a likable person or are they not a likable person? They look at what jury appeal does that person have? They look at the doctors. Are they qualified doctors or are they not qualified doctors? So those are some of the things they're looking at. And then they're looking at, what is the exposure on this case? Is this a case where a jury is going to hate us and, in terms of compensation, going to really hurt us? Or is this a case that we have a chance of winning? And that's kind of how they analyze these cases.
Can you speak to some of the tactics, if you will, that an adjuster might use to try to settle a case for peanuts?
Right. So what they try to do is they try to get you early on and try to settle. So before a victim or an injured person goes to a lawyer, the insurance companies will try to reach out to them. And number one, they will try to take their statement and, try to, lock them into certain testimony or certain facts without the lawyer being present, which is not right, but they do it anyways, because if you don't have a lawyer, they're going to try to tell you, hey, we need to record your statement. It's part of the process. In order to get your car repaired, we need your recorded statement. And so now they're doing their job because they've been taught by the defense lawyers, let's try to lock down these statements before they can get, to a lawyer. Because if they're coming to my office, they're not giving statements. We don't give statements. If you want to take their statement, that's going to be a deposition. I'm not going to let you get 2 bites at the apple. So it's not fair to do that. They wouldn't give us 2 bites at the apple. Why do you get 2 bites at the apple? So they take advantage of people who don't have lawyers. And sometimes they even take advantage of people who do have lawyers because maybe their lawyer just doesn't have the experience or the lawyer is just a mill trying to settle cases and move on to the next case. So One of the things they do is, take statements. The other one is early resolution. They want to settle these cases fast and early because if you dangle some money in front of some people, early resolution sounds great. It's quick money. We move on to the next case. But that's not always the best thing for the client. So I'm always looking at what's the best interest for the client. I want to do the best for the client because that's my number one goal. If I do good for the client, they're going to like me and they're going to, refer their friends and family members because they know we didn't just take the first offer. We didn't just do what the insurance company tells us. Or sometimes we talked about Amazon before. They'll represent that there's only $1 million in insurance and that they're independent contractors. And so you can't go after them. Well, we know that's not true. They try to do that. And so they mislead you or tell you there's only $1 million worth of coverage or $100,000 worth of coverage when in reality there was a lot more insurance. You just got to keep digging and not, take their word for it. Keep looking into it, and don't stop and really be zealous about getting what you need.
Do you have any tips for red flags that a victim should look out for when it comes to dealing with any adjusters or insurance companies?
Yeah, red flags is don't sign a release unless you're sure you're going to settle that case, right? Don't come to an agreement until you know all your injuries, because a lot of times we have a client right now that has a brachial plexus injury, which is an injury, in this case, to the left shoulder, where his left shoulder is completely dead. You can't settle that case yet because you don't know. I mean, right now they're telling them you're never going to have movement again in that shoulder. And if that's the case, we need a life care plan to talk about. Right now, you're able to use your right hand and the left hand doesn't work, right? But you're able to use your right hand. But what does it mean for the future? I'm not talking about a month from now, 2 months from now. I'm talking about 30, 40, 50 years from now. You're 30 years old. How are you going to take care of yourself? Because as you get older, we all know, unless you're really young, we all know that, you get some aches and pains, and it's not the same as when you were in your 20s or when you're 30s or, in your 40s. It's just harder to do things and you need more help and it gets harder. Driving with one hand only. We all do it. It's just a little bit harder, So there's different things when you have, a disability. So they try to settle these cases early. Early settlement, not the best thing for your case, especially if you have serious injuries. You want to look at what are the long-term nature of the injuries. Speak to the doctors, because if you're going to have pain your whole life, or you're going to have discomfort, or you're going to have to deal with these issues, that early settlement for peanuts in the scheme of things compared to what you would get if you seek full measure of justice, it's not worth it. So the number one thing I would say is don't rush to settle your case. Don't sign a release unless you're fully sure your case is over. And then if you have to, I would say file the lawsuit. Don't be scared of the insurance companies. Don't let them bully you into a meager settlement just because your lawyer just wants to, pump and dump these files. Make sure you're working up the case the right way.
How often do insurance companies deny a truck accident claim? And what are their typical reasons for doing it?
So it just depends on the case. If you're taking cases that are extremely tough, meaning your client's at fault, you probably shouldn't take them. So they'll deny that. But I think we did a podcast not too long ago where they denied my client's claim. My client, if you recall, was driving his vehicle with his wife in the car, and they had seen the truck on the road with all the flashers on it, and he smashed into the back of the truck. But they didn't have the required warning devices on the roadway, the warning triangles with the flares or the warning triangles with the reflective tape on it. They didn't have it. And had they had it on, then they could then deny the case, rightfully so. But because they didn't have it, we were able to bring a claim. So they deny them if they don't think they're at fault for the crash. Now, again, that case should have and could have settled, and it didn't. And they had to pay 7 figures on that case, because that's what the jury said, 7 figures being more than $1 million. So why do they deny claims if they don't think they're at fault, or if they don't believe the injuries are caused from this crash? So a lot of times people, they call our office, they've been in a crash, but it's been a year since the crash and they haven't been to the doctor. I'm like, that's not a case I can help you on. Why did you wait 1 year to go to the doctor? That doesn't seem like you're injured from this crash.
Yeah.
When that case, right? So they're rightfully so. If I'm defending that case, which I don't do any defense work, by the way, I did many, many moons ago, over 20 years ago, I would absolutely defend that case because I don't think that's a righteous case to bring, although maybe it is, but I don't think it is. So there's different reasons for denials, but usually it's because they don't believe there's liability, meaning who's at fault. They don't believe they're at fault, or they don't believe the injuries are related. Those are the main reasons for denying a case.
Can you walk us through the typical negotiation process with an insurance company in a truck accident case, and how you facilitate it, and kind of how everything plays out?
Yeah. So when we do negotiations, I would say it starts from the moment you get that case. You're speaking with the adjuster. You're making sure the adjuster knows about your case. I'm peppering them with information all the time, then putting together the demand package, which entails my theories of the case, our demand, all the medical records, all the evidentiary value, evidence that we have from photos, videos, black box data, telematics, the cell phone download, everything that we have, and telling them, here is the book, and here's why the case is going to settle, or why it should settle, and this is why you need to do it. And it's a comprehensive book that we give them. And then we continue to negotiate in an attempt to settle the case. If they do the right thing, the case settles for the amount we want. If they don't, then we file the lawsuit, and then we proceed and get the case ready for trial. And sometimes these cases settle at mediation, but the negotiations will go back and forth. Like every time they give me an offer, I will call the client or send the client an email or a text. Hey, we got X as an offer. I don't think that's a fair offer, or I think it's a fair offer. It'll really be up to the client. And then the client will make a decision, and then we will go forward and go into another round of negotiations. And sometimes you go through 10 rounds before you get the case resolved, or sometimes you're in mediation, and they always throw off an insulting offer as the first offer. And I always tell the clients, don't get mad. The first offer is going to be really bad. And the first thing they do is they get mad. How can they do this? It's just like standard par for the course. It happens. I think that just happens when people get upset. Like, why are they, devaluating me, is what they're saying, meaning their injuries.
It's like
How
a
can they
personal
do
attack,
that?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They really see it as an attack. But I always tell people, don't look at the first number, because it's a game. You have to play their game. Look at the last number, and then you won't even remember the first number. But that happens.
You've been doing this for a long time now. How quickly can you tell when you start the negotiations whether they're gonna like lowball you, and like this isn't gonna go quickly?
Yeah. So sometimes, the adjusters play it close to the vest where you have no idea.
Mm.
And then sometimes there's been a lot of back and forth where you can gauge what's going on. So it really depends. There's times I can gauge and have an idea. And then there's times where I don't know what they're thinking or why they're thinking that way, and how can they make this foolish decision, but they do it. Sort of like that case I told you about in one of the other podcasts, where we're $100,000 apart. Case should have and could have settled, and instead they get hit for $5 million more. So sometimes I just don't know. And I really try to educate them. And I tell them, please look at it this way. I think you're looking at this the wrong way. I'm trying to help you guys do the right thing. But sometimes that doesn't help. And some people need to learn the hard way, which is okay, because, I like being in trial. And to me, it's fun. It's the fun part of my job. So sometimes it's good to, put the trial boots on and get back in there.
The case you're referencing, I think we talked about in the last episode. It was the one that like you guys were $100,000 apart. It was like in the low 1 millions and ended up settling for over 6, I think was the case.
Correct.
Like I remember asking you like how they could be so wrong on that. But in situations like that, when they're squabbling over 100,000, is there just a number that they can't get out of their head, or are they just trying to like, they just don't want to back down for like a, like a I don't know, like a pride thing or something?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a pride thing. It's a number that when they get the case initially, they put a number on the file, and it's very difficult. The reserve is what they call it. They put reserves on the file. So it's very difficult to get over that reserve amount. So you always want to make sure the reserves are set at the right limit. Otherwise, you're going to have a hurdle to get the right amount on the case, and then you're going to see yourself in trial as opposed to settling the case. You got to get the reserves at the right numbers, put them at the right numbers early on in the case, and not wait until right before trial, because that's the way to buy your client a trial. And then you better perform if you're going to trial.
How do you help protect the victim's rights during the claims process, especially when negotiating with the insurance companies?
So, I'm always looking out for my client's interests from the day we get the case, from, again, gathering evidence to sending the spoliation letters to ensuring that they're just not taking statements of my clients, educating the clients on what to expect during the process, what to expect. They may be hiring someone to follow you around all the time, which they do. It's part of what, they'll follow you around. Now, some of my clients, if they follow them around, they're never going to give us the video because it's never going to show anything good for them. So, but yeah, they're trying to do anything possible to save money, right? Save a buck. So save a buck on the straps that they didn't, strap down the metal beams, save a buck on not paying our clients or people who are hurt and their lives have been impacted. They're always trying to save money. So it's our job to say, hey, wait a minute, you can save money with other lawyers. You're just not saving money with this law firm. This law firm, you're going to pay the full measure of justice because that's what it's going to take to get this case settled, or we'll see you at the courthouse.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to Road to Recovery, advocacy and insights for trucking accidents with Sagi Shaked. For more information or to connect with Sagi, visit shakedlaw.com. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and leave us a review. Sagi, great talking with you again. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.